Yeah, this is a very exciting night, I think, for all three of us. I've got to be honest, without giving too much away. I think,
Yeah.
Well, good.
yeah.
I think we're going to be
Really
talking about my
looking forward to it.
favorite topic, so that'll be good.
Yeah, and why
Ours
would it not
too.
be? Yeah.
So, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. How are you doing, Jim? Everything good with you, man?
Yeah. It's all good. You know, it's
Awesome.
It's good to have a new year to look forward to.
That's right. Point. I keep forgetting that we're in January. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year. Yeah.
I hope your holiday was nice.
It was nice, and we, the conversation has been with a lot of my people I've been talking to is like, when do we stop saying Happy New Year?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's when is it culturally, important to stop? Because I think I used to go by the 15th, but now I really go by the when everyone puts their Christmas trees outside. And it's done. We're done with it. We put the Christmas away, so it's no more.
Right.
You don't get to talk about it
I took down my Christmas decorations from my front yard today before they blew away. So they're safely in my backyard. So
there you go.
It's over. Party's done.
Okay. That's it. We're moving on. It was just
we're moving on. Right.
Back in the day, we used to be able to, practice the fact that it's 2026 by writing checks. No one does that anymore. We don't do that. There's no excuse for like, oh shoot, yeah, I can't keep writing 25. Like, when was that? I don't even know where a checkbook is. So,
yeah, what's a checkbook? I mean, I don't suppose my girls know what a checkbook is.
Yeah.
I don't even know where. I think I know where mine's at. I haven't written a check in years.
No.
It's 2026. Do you know where your checkbook is? Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to Sound Discussion. Each episode, we discuss a music topic which we have all had first-hand experience with. These will be anything from getting started, recording, playing live, mixing, mastering, and everything in between. Most episodes will have a special guest to bring their professional experience to the discussion. Let's get started.
Dudes. This is going to be an amazing episode. I can't wait. Okay, so let me tee this up a little bit. So this was a little bit before Christmas, 2025. I'm doing a little bit of shopping. My wife decided to go to a store, and just a couple of doors down from the store she went into was a Guitar Center. I'm not really one to just go to Guitar Center because, But I'm like, well, I got some time to kill. My kid is with me. Let's go see what's at Guitar Center. He likes playing on the pianos and stuff. So we walk into the Guitar Center. I look at some of the used gear. We walk around and look at some of the guitars. And a salesperson walks up to me, as they do, and they're like, hey, welcome to Guitar Center. Can I help you find anything? No, I'm just, shopping with my son. We're just, burning some time. He's like, that's cool. Okay, let me know if you need anything. All right, cool. So we walk around. We're looking at some guitar pedals. And I see on the shelf, the very first guitar pedal that I ever got in my life, sitting on that shelf, a Zoom 505, like all-in-one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the terrible sounding. But it was sitting there on the shelf. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen that since I was like 17. Wild. And the guy was right next to me he was stocking the shelf with some stuff, and he's like, can I unlock the door for you? You want to get anything out and try it? I'm like, no, I'm good, but I'm just marveling at this guitar pedal that I got as a kid. And so we started talking about like our experiences as kids growing up with playing guitars and our very first pedals. And then we started talking about recording and home studios. And I mentioned the podcast because he seemed like someone who might be interested in it. He's like, my dad might be someone you would want to talk to.
Just maybe.
And I'm just like, okay, tell me more. And so he told me. And like after about 5 minutes, my jaw was on the floor. And I said, please tell your dad, have him give me a call. This is going to be, yeah. So, okay, that is the story. I don't usually walk into Guitar Center, but
good job you did.
He struts in.
Sometimes, sometimes you should just walk into Guitar Center because you never know who you're going to run into. So today's guest is someone who quietly shows up in the background of a lot of important music from the late 80s to early 90s to mid 90s and beyond. Jim Haviland is around in the rooms, behind the scenes, during some really legendary moments.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, his path runs for audio runs from Chicago to Seattle, late 80s, stretching through the 2000s. I mean, you know, he was in Seattle right as things were, well, it's Seattle, right?
Just as things were starting to get interesting.
Yeah.
I was really, I was Forrest Gump, man. I was just let me place it right the time. Don't know what I'm doing. It's like, oh, just trying to be, trying to hold on. Trying to hold on tight. Seattle in the early 90s was a very unique place. I mean, no one, I got a chance to have a very unique perspective on it because I wasn't a Seattleite. I was coming from Chicago and a very different environment. You know, I was working in advertising downtown, but was still had, you know, long hair. I was in a band, you know, a couple bands and doing records with, you know, folks overnight. But I went out to Seattle because it was, you know, it's a long story, but I was like, hey, that seems like a cool place. But it was because it was so quiet. It was like away from everything. Like nothing's going on here. And that was the attitude. It was like, hey, man, no one's paying attention to Seattle. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, that was what really gave birth to all that. They weren't trying to impress anybody. You know, they were just trying to, you know, make music for each other and impress each other. You know, kind of like the same energy was in the Beatles, where it's like, you know, John and Paul like battling it out. You know, who can write the better hook, and just to make the better song or the better record or have the better show. But knowing that we're all showing up for each other. And I found that it's like, man, this is a great place to be. But I just didn't. It seemed like a place to settle down, not to go to the center of the universe and experience what you know what was going to be culturally important for the next decade.
I don't think anyone would have been able to see what was coming, right? I mean, especially if that humble attitude of like, well, we're just playing our music, we're just doing our thing, we're playing for our friends.
Yeah.
Who's expecting that the universe is literally going to explode around them?
Yeah, it wasn't a place for, I'm going to take my ambitions to conquer the world. I'm going to go to Seattle. That definitely wasn't the thing. Matter of fact, we thought, I mean, because Seattle has had like boom times before. In the early 70s, there was a boom. Steve Miller Band and Hard and BTO. I mean, there was, they've had chunks, and I have a story behind why those all happened at the same time. But everyone thought that Mother Love Bone was going to be the big next thing, and when Andy Wood died, everyone just thought it was over. It passed by, and there were another camp that thought, the Posies are going to be huge, and then that record didn't get really go anywhere. So everyone was like, we gave it a shot, no big deal.
Nothing to see here.
We'll go back to what we were doing. It took a long time for things to pick up. I mean, Nevermind was out for a long time before it picked up, and we were hearing it all the time in Seattle, right? But someone came back, someone from Iowa came back from visiting there and said, damn, this thing happened, guys. I was 2 a.m. I'm at a 7-Eleven and this pickup truck drives up. This guy with a cowboy hat pops out and he's cranking Teen Spirit. And we're like, what? Who outside of Seattle has heard that song? And, it snowballed. I mean, it was really, completely unexpected. I mean, we just weren't expecting it. And, but because I was an outsider, I was always in the role of paying attention, going, guys, this is kind of a thing. We should maybe pay attention to this. But I missed stuff. I mean, my worst story was, I missed, I was hired there, at the studio that became, Bad Animals. It was called Steve Lawson Productions. Not very sexy, but Steve's a great guy, and I owe him a lot, and he's thanked me a lot because I talked him into making rebuilding the music rooms. But he was a radio and TV post guy. That was what he did, and he bought these old studios that were there from the 70s. So that's the cool thing about that. So in 1971, Danny Kaye, the actor, partnered with a guy named Lester Smith. Lester Smith was a big radio mogul at that time. That Seattle doesn't talk about it, but the like Muzak and the programming of most of the automated stations across the country was coming out of Seattle. A building actually behind where Bad Animals was. We in our studios, we actually recorded the all the kind of washed up DJs that would do all those radio stations. So, they'd come in, they do 4 hours of, and this is WKCC, your Topeka station for live hits, whatever it was. And they would just do a bunch of those inserts, and they'd send out boxes of CDs, and that would become the radio station for Port Topeka. And then they would program them over the air, just send satellite updates to the playlists. And that was how it all worked. So the whole radio station was a receptionist and the sales guy selling the radio time.
That's really cool. Amazing. That's so cool.
Well, cool and uncool, right? Because the notion of rock and roll idea, like how do new acts break in? You can. There's three guys that control 60% of all the radio stations in the country. So until they think it's cool, it's not that cool.
Well, I find it fascinating just because I'm a radio nerd, right?
Yeah,
so how that all works is very cool.
Absolutely. It was very interesting that was, from a technology perspective, I thought it was, I'm an engineer, so I thought it was cool in that regard. But anyway, so I was hired because I was working at a big studio in Seattle, in Chicago rather, called Universal Recording, which had been around since the early days of recording. This is where all of the early blues records were made coming out of Chicago. Were all at Universal. They had all the equipment from all that back then. They were one of the places where stereo was researched. So they had gear, crazy gear, like rooms and rooms of gear from other eras. And it was like every room that wasn't in use was a museum, and some of the rooms that were in use for museums as well, which are super. And they had 7 degreed electrical engineers on staff to keep all, must have been 40 rooms running. So it was a great sandbox for audio gear. But anyway, I was there, and so I had experience with a lot of different kinds of gear. And this guy Steve Lawson was trying to rebuild this old K. Smith Studios into his new Steve Lawson Productions. And so they needed a guy that had a wide berth of understanding of the gear. And I visited Seattle and went back to Chicago and said, Seattle's pretty cool, man. I said, oh, I heard about a job out there. Do you want to talk to this guy? That was February. By June, I was driving across the country to go work at what would become Bad Animals.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I'm there, and it's like there's all this gear from the 70s, like all the stuff that you dream about, the Pultex and all the tube gear, all the outboard stuff. They had when they built K. Smith, they wanted to make it the most technologically advanced studio in the world for that time. Because what they were doing, the reason they built it was they wanted to control the universe of jingles.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
They wanted to be the jingle kings of the world. At that time, the jingle kings of the world was some place in Dallas. I don't even know the name of it. And they said, we're going to take that over, man. And that's why they built K. Smith. So they put, it was, all the rooms were quad. They were wired for quad because it was, 1970, 71. And API consoles, 3M 24 track tape machines, or originally 16s, your all cork on the walls. All that kind of stuff. And one of the rooms was untouched from that time when I got there. I'll finish the story about K. Smith though. So the K. Smith didn't do well because they built the rooms, and then they hired a bunch of people away from Dallas to come to Seattle. They hired the engineers and the producers and the writers. Who didn't they hire? The sales guys. They didn't hire the sales guys. So what they ended up with is a bunch of guys that know how to do really amazing stuff sitting around doing nothing. So they start giving away studio time for really low rates. And that's how Steve Miller Band got his first records made. And that's how Nancy Wilson from Heart got the records made. That's how BTO got a record made. Because it's just like, it was just it was a business mistake that created the opportunity for them to get studio time that with amazing, producers and engineers. And suddenly, the records that we know all too well from those, and made amazing careers for those people.
Wow.
But then it went away because what they didn't do is do anything to kind of keep it. They didn't build careers. They just like sold records. I don't know if it was really an opportunity for it, but that's what I was walking into, all that history, and some of the gear from those days. And so my job was to kind of bring it all back to life. And there was one closet that I opened up after I was there, and it was really just full of tube gear that it wasn't working. And I was like LA2As, just like stacks of this stuff. Like, no one knows how to fix this stuff. Like, you got to be kidding me. There's like 5 parts in there. I can get those parts. And we're ordering tubes from Russia and, giant caps and stuff like that. I got really good at that stuff. But I was working on a Pultec equalizer one day when someone says to me, "Hey, Jim, there's a band playing tonight." And said, "Oh, what band?" Said, "Well, it's some of the guys from it was kind of a super group, like some of the guys from Mother Love Bone and other groups. I think it's called Mookie Blaylock. Mookie Blaylock. I think I'll catch the next time."
I'll pass.
Yeah, maybe next time. Of course, that was the one time Pearl Jam played as Mookie Blaylock. I missed that show. Could have gone.
Wow.
I was working on a Pultec instead.
Priorities, right?
Yeah, it's a good reason to not go and see a band. There's worse reasons.
Well, yeah, no doubt. But like I said, my attitude about it was like already like there's this notion of being there at the moment of creation. Like I just saw Hamnet and films and stories like that where you get to kind of relive, even if they're fictionalized, like this at that moment when something is created. Like, what's the thing that makes that thing happen? Maybe that's my magic or my strong suit is that I'm looking for that. I'm looking for those peak moments where like, oh, I'm here, present at the time that this amazing thing happens, and I'll be telling the story for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and you were. You definitely were.
Yeah, well, my first time I was in Seattle, I would tell the story about missing the Mookie Blaylock show, and I'd say, "Listen, if anything happens, you tell me. I'm there. I'm
right. I'm not making that mistake again.
It's never going to happen again. I'm never saying no. I'm too busy. I'm too tired. No, because I'm looking for the peak moment.
Yeah.
And being open to it and being humble to the notion that there are amazing things that happen around you, and if you just keep looking for them. And of course, in Seattle in the 90s, they were everywhere, the entire decade, really. It was certainly a music scene, but then all the stuff we saw with the internet and with streaming and Amazon, of course. There was a time in the 90s in Seattle where anybody could get a meeting with anybody because no one knew what was going to happen next. Everyone was like, there's this heightened notion that, wow, we're waiting for lightning to strike again, and where's it going to happen? And I want to be there at that moment. You couldn't get 2 meetings with anybody, but you could get one, and if you had something really to pitch.
Because I guess there probably was also a bit of almost the fear of missing that next big thing when so many things are happening.
Yeah.
In Seattle, everybody's like, we can't miss the next one.
Well, and that's part of what ends up exhausting a scene like that is that notion of, and I actually talked to Stone Gossard about this at one point because he and I got pretty good at digital editing when Pro Jam still wasn't doing anything digitally. And he asked me to come in. He kind of wanted to do a Radiohead thing. So we're trying to cut some 8-beat drum bits into 7. Right. So what would that sound like? Can I just take an 8-beat groove and turn it into a 7-beat groove? I was just doing it. I mean, that sounds cool. He says, Jim, the worst part about it is I used to just be able to jam with people and it would be fun and we'll just, knock around ideas. But everybody in the room, everywhere I go now is like, is this going to be released? Is this going to be a thing? Right. There's nothing that's subtle or fun you can do. And that was, when we built Litho, that was the idea. It's like, hey, everything's getting really pro. How can we get back to just having a place that isn't oriented in the machine and feels like we're just getting together and feels like it's just about a creative space and not about the technology and not about the business. And when we built Studio X, so I rebuilt, the studios that were there at Bad Animals. Well, it wasn't called Bad Animals. It was still called Lawson Productions. And then Anna Nancy Wilson came back to town and wanted to build a studio. And they were going to build something out in on the other side of Lake Washington. But someone convinced him to come see what we had going on. And they used to work there. That's where they made their first record. So, and while they were there, I talked him into looking at this soundstage that we had attached to it, which was still occasionally used for some shooting commercials. Like I got to be a hand model one day because they're shooting over my shoulder. I've got my hands on the steering wheel of a car. So
cool.
Yeah. Well, I just did it for the experience, but and they gave me a manicure, so I looked good on camera. But I showed him the sound stage, and it was like, it's a pretty big space. And I said, we've got all that gear here. And if you're going to be building a studio, you're going to want all this stuff, and it's just all right here already. We have a leg up on building an amazing studio right here. So they bought into Steve Lawson Productions, and there was a woman that worked there, who ended up being a good friend of mine, in one of my bands. And she was a Heart fan, and she was like, it would be really cool if we were able to use the Bad Animals logos as part of us. It's like, so that's how it became Bad Animals Seattle, because it was the graphic design on that record was really good. So when we launched, we all got like biker jackets that had the Bad Animals logo on the back of them, so which was nice. Pretty fun. Yeah,
that's cool.
I wish I knew where that jacket was, but it's hopefully it's being cool somewhere.
Somebody picked it up from the thrift store. Like, this is rad. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna wear it.
Right. Yeah. Bad Animals, man. It's a good name.
Right.
That is a pretty cool name. So you had mentioned that that like they were looking for Lightning Twice in the Seattle area.
Yeah.
Didn't Candlebox come out of that scene like afterward? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, so I mean, here's
strike times.
It's a great. I mean, so there was the early band, so there was the early scene, right? So
with like Mudhoney and
yeah, I mean the people that were there already,
Green River, right? And
100%. And then as the records came out, and as the I'm wearing some flannel today in honor of our conversation, but it's Hilfiger. Yeah, so it's a designer. It seemed like
right. Yeah, exactly. It was bougie flannel.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just became. Went through phases where that phase it was original, it was authentic, and then the more authenticity kind of grabs people, it's no longer, you kind of lose track of it, right? It became yet another uniform to wear, and or a way of being, and and everyone there had the sense of. Hey, there's people coming here that have nothing to do with who we are. Eddie was one of those people for a period of time. It's like, Eddie Vedder, man, he's not a Seattleite. He's from California. We hate California. That place is so fake. Obviously, Eddie's not fake. He's a very authentic guy. And he fit perfectly in the mold because Seattle was really about people that came there. I mean, the whole thing was full of people that were from somewhere that had gone there for some reason, trying to find peace or a second chance. The ultimate place for that is Alaska. If you ever spend any time in Alaska, everyone there, half people there are divorced, right? Because they're like, this is Act 2. That's where you go. You go to Alaska, but Seattle was very much like that at the time. But so during the 93, 94, we started seeing more and more like A&R people just hanging out there all the time, right? So even like the second wave of bands might include like Presidents of the USA, right? But that good story there. I knew those guys. Dave Dieter and I got to be good friends. I had a show at the Off Ramp for my band, Buddha Loves Jesus, and I invited them to play on the show as a warm-up band. But by the time we got to the show, like days before, they changed the order. I said, "What the hell, man? What's going on?" It's like, "Oh, there's some A&R people just here to see the presidents."
Yeah.
And I had a reasonably good show that night, but that's the night they got signed. So after that was like,
wow.
It wasn't like I didn't have A&R people like aware of me and my band. I don't have any excuse, for like
they were there.
They saw, passed, and went on to the presidents, which is I think fair. That was a wise decision on their part. But that they came out of a very different. I mean, they got to take advantage of the fact that there were people that knew how to do it by that point. They were professionals in town, and they're fully aware that there was attention being paid, and they were able to take advantage of that. Good for them. But then there was another wave when you get like the Candlebox, like people just completely came from out of town, one-way ticket. Like, I'm going to be a Seattle band, right? And I think that's. It doesn't mean that they weren't. I mean, Seattle didn't own the attitude, but there was whatever that magic of authenticity of humility that was gone, right? Because by the time you get to that that third wave of bands, these are people that really wanted to have big careers. That's why they came to Seattle.
Yeah, they came for the career rather than
which is nothing. Yeah. I don't have anything against that, by the way. I mean,
no. But I find it really interesting that a band that somebody might say, "Oh, that's a Seattle band," of you guys are going, "They're not a Seattle band." They're...
Right. Yeah. I mean,
but isn't that Seattle, no different than
Starbucks? They don't make coffee.
Exactly.
But isn't that no different than like, oh, I'm gonna go drive to Nashville and make it big there, right?
Absolutely. Sure. Well, I mean, because Nashville's a little bit more established. They've had multiple generations, multiple waves, and you go there because you want to be part of that lineage. And that was like part of my story to Seattleites during that period of time. I said, listen, here's the thing we don't want to do for sure. We don't want to let this pass by just having a couple of bands come through and sell records. So I dedicate, once we started building Studio X, I started going around and telling everybody, listen, I love you guys. I'm not really a Seattleite, but what I don't want to see happen is for me to compete with you. And, the competition inside here doesn't really matter, because to everyone that's coming, everyone that's going to have awareness about us over the next couple of years, coming from somewhere else, they're just calling Seattle. They're just coming. Whether they come to me or they come to you, their experience is a Seattle experience, not a you experience or me experience. So I want to build some Stone Soup. I want to. So I said, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I've got the best gear in the city. No one argued with that. I had the best mics in the city. No one argued with that. I'm going to make them all available for you guys to rent. So all of you can add all of my gear to your gear list, and I will rent it to you, and I will make it work. And when I can't service someone calling, I'm going to get most of the calls, guys. But I will hand out leads. I will say, hey, I can't help you, but I know someone that's perfect for you. You're going to love this place. So not even just making a recommendation, like it's just a hand up, like a superlative recommendation. Like, this is the place that's going to make it for you, man. And I'm going to make sure it goes well. I'm going to stay involved. So we make great records. Everyone has a great experience. Nobody feels that weird competition that like in LA or New York, like we're all here. We're all Seattle. We're gonna make it happen together. And I said, I put everyone on notice. Like let's when you hear about something and you think it's going to damage the Seattle brand, I didn't say that because that would have been uncool, but like they have, damage what people think about Seattle. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out a way to get everyone satisfied so they feel great about their Seattle experience. And the best part about that, what came out of that was we were able to build a lot of careers that might not have happened otherwise. Like people further down the stack, not just the bands, but producers and engineers and promo people, and like all that, giving everybody a chance to have, not competing with each other, but competing against the rest of the world to some extent. Like, this is the Seattle way. Let's make sure everyone can do it. So, I mean, even to this day, there's a great diaspora of people that were part of that scene, and we keep track of each other because it was like I said, we weren't in competition. We knew we were at some point. We knew we were part of something really special. So it's worth it.
So the location matters, but it also it does and it doesn't, because there's also the equipment and all that stuff and the skill and all that stuff that has been built up throughout the era that was building. And that Seattle sound that you hear on the record, even, I mean, like you go listen to any Sub Pop record, like Mudhoney, the first Nirvana, Bleach, like all the same drum sounds, right? It just seems like, and it's that sound, and
that makes total sense. That kind of comes together now, yeah.
Well, I mean, there were only a handful of producers making most of those records. I mean, let's be real clear. I mean, there's a story I heard from a producer out of Nashville. He said that there's one studio you could go down there, and the guy that owned the studio was the engineer, and he didn't let anyone else touch the faders. So this is where the faders go to make hits.
they're preset for you. You don't need to touch them.
Right. Why would you screw with that?
It's the ultimate template.
Right. So like, I don't buy it, but okay, because part of it's believing in it, right? I believe that something magical can happen. Listen, studios, especially ones that have been around for a while, carry with them some of the soul of everyone that's made records there. I mean, that's when I had a chance to record some vocals in Studio A at Universal Recording in Chicago. I mean, that's a room that's been busy, like super busy, since the 40s. Like, they have a wire recorder there. So, I mean, for a really long time, they've been making amazing records there, and real great performances. I mean, they have records from every era on the walls, and that it doesn't exist anymore. But up when I was there, and they had stories about all the different kinds of people there and all the things they were addicted to, and the different eras of drugs and hookers and all the things that go on. And but you can feel the ghosts. And so, that was one of the things that I say that because I think it really makes a difference when you know the stories of the stuff that you're dealing with. Hey, I want to be a part of that studio. I'm trying to be additive, to that story, that arc, and people wanted to go back, just like Steve Albini. I mean, he was not a happy, nice guy necessarily. I encountered him when I was in Chicago, and then I had some other interactions when I was in Seattle. But like Nirvana made an Euro with him because they wanted that. There was something there. It wasn't just him, but it was about the way he approached it. It was bigger than technique or gear. It was something else that they wanted to really make sure was part of what they're doing. Because
that sound.
Well, and it's the feel. I mean, Kurt wanted to feel. I mean, Kurt was obviously a troubled guy, but he wanted to be popular. But then as soon as he was popular, he didn't like it, and there was no turning back. Right?
Yeah, it was a bit late then, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, he was fighting so hard in Euro period and the tour that followed to get back to just feeling like he was doing it for his friends. So much so, matter of fact, so I told everybody about I don't want to miss any more Mookie Blaylock shows. So about the time after In Utero came out, I got a call from this woman Stephanie who was running the Crocodile Cafe. Lots of great stories about Stephanie. But the Crocodile was like a block from the studio, so we took all the rock stars that came to town over to Stephanie's place, and we were just constantly there. They do surprise shows there, and super fun stuff. But Stephanie calls me up one Sunday morning, said, "Jim, you got to come to the club tonight." I said, "Why? What's going on?" "I cannot tell you, but remember the story you told me?" So yeah, I'll be there. I'm there.
It's not happening again.
And
Nice.
And it was really, I mean, it was at that point, like after In Utero comes out and they're about to start doing that tour, that we already kind of feel it all feels different, right? We're not playing for each other anymore. We're the center of the fashion universe and the cultural universe. But what Stephanie did is she invited all of the people that were part of the original scene, the people that, the same 50, 60 people that went to all the shows. And, we used to joke that amongst that group, everybody's either on MTV or sleeping with someone on MTV. And it was mostly true. And she invited us to the club, and it was a special show. It was Mudhoney played a little bit, and then Nirvana came on, and that was the first. I got to hear what this tour is going to sound like, and we're kind of wondering, are we going to mosh or and I had and there were other people there. There were other people that were there. I mean, aside from that our original crowd, like I don't know if you remember those days at MTV, but Tabitha Sorens was there. REM had decided they wanted to be part of the scene as well, and actually Peter Buck has a thing for women that own clubs, so he and Stephanie were a thing. But anyway, there was it wasn't just who we were. We couldn't recreate that feeling. But that's what Kurt said from the stage. He's like, I just wanted to feel like we were a little band from Seattle again for a minute. Yeah. And it breaks my heart thinking about it, because that wasn't even a real thing then. That's not a grown-up thought. We don't think, we just have to savor those moments. That's really the point.
Yeah. He just wanted to play for his mates in front of his hometown, didn't he? I mean,
that's it.
That's kind of all he wanted to do.
That's it. I just wanted, and so I made a radio program with Chris Novoselic afterwards. So Chris and I had a lot of chance to talk through it. But he's like, we were just really great friends, and we were a great band together. It felt so good to be in our band. And, it's hard to think about replacing that. And he for a long time, he couldn't play in a band. He couldn't join a band. He couldn't, he made some stuff, but it was like, I just can't do it again. He was, and they were all sweet guys. I mean, I love them all dearly. But anyway, so I got to see them at close range. That obviously it wasn't long before Kurt was gone after that.
Yeah, sadly for all of us, definitely. I think
27. That's the age.
I mean, one of them's gone on to have a continued music career in some small band somewhere in the world that, people may have heard of the Foo Fighters, but I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, maybe they're played occasionally on the radio.
So the Foo Fighters, I love it. So one of the guys that took advantage of the fact that we had all these opportunities was a guy named Adam Casper, a great engineer, and became a great producer. And he ended up doing a bunch of work. He was like the assistant engineer on Super Unknown. But he was above that, but he just wanted to be there. And he got to know Michael Beinhorn. Eventually he became the Foo Fighters guy. Without telling me though, I'm going to put it out there. You got to call me, dude. He built a copy of Studio Litho in Virginia for the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And I would have been fine with that if we would have talked about it.
Really?
Yeah. Because it was a cool setup. They wanted the same kind of thing, man.
Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I've seen the documentary that talks about them building that studio in Virginia.
Yep.
I just thought they wanted to, to get away from the big, corporate business feeling studio, and they just wanted to go record in, their parents' basement again. Like they were teenagers.
That was the idea behind Studio Litho, is how do we make it look like kind of like borrowing from the Pearl Jam rehearsal space. So they had a rehearsal space in the same neighborhood where Bad Animals was, and where Crocodile was. That neighborhood was very hip, and there was a kind of he's a really great guy, a blacksmith called Black Dog Forge. That's on the first floor, and he's got all kinds of stuff in there. He's all tatted up. He has big parties in there around all this stuff. It's really kind of a wacky place. And this rehearsal space was the basement of that.
Oh, right? Wow!
And they maintained that for a really long time. That was their rehearsal space, because it was like going back to the womb. There's that safe space that. We feel like we're still us. And I think it's one of those things that becomes hard for a lot of bands to, maintain, there's a reason why there's a sophomore slump, and where, people that are amazing kind of fade out because they lose track of the muse, so when we built Litho, I kind of took all that in because I'd had enough stories around creative facilities that I wanted to invite the muse in. So we did a couple of things. We made it so it didn't look pristine. I wanted the thought exercise was, what would it look like if we grabbed a bunch of gear and we just put it together in this place in a temporary way? So nothing should feel like it's permanent, like it was meant to be here. This is an industrial space that we just took over to make our place. So like all of this, but we did kind of high-end acoustic stuff in the big room, but we made it look like there was just we were salvaging industrial stuff. When we built Studio X, it was like all the cables. You never saw a cable because it was just wanted to have this very pristine kind of Nordic look to it. Right. We didn't know, because it was like kind of the thing. We met this architect. He gave us a thing. It's like, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful place until they tore it down. But we wanted to do the other thing. We wanted to make it look like, hey, maybe not the basement, but it's like there was a kitchen there that was like from the 1950s, and Stone was like, we're not changing this at all. This is going to look like this. This linoleum is staying. It's like, okay. But we got into it. It's like, okay, it's got to feel like that all over the place. Like there's not going to be the high end stuff. It's got to feel a little gritty, and but it was carefully rehearsed ad libbing. I mean, there was like a room that there was a small bathroom. It was in a weird place where we ended up having the studio and the layout there. And I just made it a room where everyone would graffiti. And I created some graffiti to start the process, So once again, carefully rehearsed ad libbing. And I got all that and we created a backstory. Studio Litho had a backstory. Of what used to be there and how it came to be, and the kinds of things that had happened there, and kind of, and with that whole thing, like building on the past and being able to add that to what we're doing, made it added to what we're doing. And I got that from Skywalker Sound when I was still Steve Lawson Productions. We ended up being in this pre-internet. We had a fiber channel network. I guess it was DS1. I don't remember now, but we were on this network so people could do like voiceovers and look at dailies for films without traveling up and down the coast. Right. So Skywalker Sound is in San Francisco.
Probably an ISDN line or something like that.
That's right. We have like multiples, added up with the idea that you could look at the dailies of a film, or you could have someone do ADR on a film from anywhere, any of the studios along this network. And we put that in, but I got a chance to go see Skywalker Sound. And it's an amazing place because Luke it wasn't like he just built a studio. He said, okay, I'm going to take this bit of land and I'm building a story. I'm a storyteller. So he says, okay, a sea captain comes to, decides he wants to settle down. He's going to get married, and he's going to start a farm. What would that farmhouse look like? Oh, okay. And so he built a farmhouse that would look like it would in the late 1800s with all this. And he had to find and down to the details. Like it's lath and plaster, man. There's no drywall in here. We have to find artisans that can actually do all this stuff to make that room.
Wow.
And then he said, okay, then there's a barn that would be built about that time. And then the next generation, one of the sons wanted to be, I'll miss the details of the story, but wanted to be a winery. So that second barn was built around what it would look like in the 1920s, including the viewing theater for that studio. It was all Art Deco to be in that time. And so that was the whole idea of the place. With even though they're building the most technologically advanced movie production facility on the planet, that it looks like it came out of a story. That it's like
a theme park for audio engineers.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
that's so cool.
Or it's like taking a concept album to the whole next level, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've got a concept for.
I've heard of Skywalker Ranch and stuff, but I had no idea that they went to
that's
all
what
of that
that's
level.
what it's all about. And I think that it's knowing that there are no throwaway parts of the process. That all those things matter. That it all adds up. I mean, I think that's trying to find that unspoken thing. Like there was a story we did the very first recording we did inside Studio X was Ann and Nancy. They wanted to be the first ones that used it. And they came in and it was just Ann doing overdubs. And we had two 24-track digital machines locked up. So they have 48 tracks. And they were doing this horrible thing where she would sing it, and then they would comp all the vocals. So you take 18 takes and then, take phrases out of each of those 18 takes, and they do it. And okay, we got one, and we erase those, and we do it again. And so they'd end up with 12 comps, and now we're going to comp the comps to try to find the perfect recording. And I think having a definition of what perfect means, grunge was the opposite of that. Like we want feel. We don't want, we don't want to on purpose be out of tune, but if it's appropriate, then let's be out of tune.
If it's part of the art, right?
Right. And so
strip the melody out of it.
In response to that reality, that's where Pearl Jam started doing we're just going to keep running the tape machine. I mean, they would go through 40 reels of 2-inch while they were recording because they just keep it going.
Jeez.
Just keep it going.
What, did they have two to kind of like A and a B machine so that you wouldn't have any breaks, or would you take a break to load up another reel?
Every time let's take it from the top, hit record. Okay, go. And so they did have a stereo mix of everything that happened. So we would run, but that was on DAT. So there are somewhere in the archives every take and everything that happened between them, of everything that happened for Pearl Jam.
God, I hope those tapes are safe somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Do you know?
I mean, that large studio fire that happened in Los Angeles, 10 years ago? Was it Universal or Warner Brothers? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was Warner Brothers, or maybe Sony.
Yeah.
It was maybe Sony.
Oh, maybe it was Sony. Yeah, they lost all those master tapes
because here's what happened during the I know a lot of those folks, and during the consolidation of that Hollywood continues to go through.
Sure.
They bought some place and they brought all the archives in, and they didn't really have a plan for what they were going to do with the archives. They just kind of like, we have the archives. Good. There weren't engineers part of the M&A team, right? Which was a miss. So the reason that they were all like that is because it wasn't appropriate for where they were stored.
Yeah. In my mind, Nate and Neil, I'm thinking Netflix series behind the man. Everybody's watching that.
I've got a concept that I've been working on it's like a fictionalized history, because there are some people's stories I think are worth telling that didn't get get really either due in the day, and there's some themes that are really important. I mean, we lost a lot of people to heroin, and it it's controversial, but there were, and everyone involved is not dead yet. But there were bands that were my clients and my friends, and they had members that were using, and they would ask to make accommodations so they could make that part of the recording process. And and I was never. I'd already lost too many people, so I was like, no, man, we gotta get this figured out. And if you gotta do that, you gotta do it somewhere else, man. So, and they do it behind my back. I mean, to some extent. I mean, when we first worked with Alice in Chains, I was at Studio X, so at Bad Animal still, and they were in Studio X. We actually had to have 3 assistant engineers on that gig because they would run. The studio was operational 24/7. Because different people were on different cycles, and it's not a healthy environment for anybody. It wasn't for me to turn anybody away at that point, but it really made me sick. So when I built Litho, I was like, guys, this is what I want to do. I want to say no to stuff like this because it's not healthy. And but it's hard because if that's where someone's at. You have to want to get clean, and do you cut those people out of your life? Do you make sure
you have to meet them where they're at? Right.
I mean, who am I to say? But Litho was a place my kids hung out. I had, it was meant to be that kind of place where does anyone come hang out? I mean, there was that 1950s kitchen. We'd have all kinds of people just hanging out there. That was the vibe. It was like, have your friends come by. There was a court out. We had a space next to the building where there's a giant pear tree, and we built a court so you could play basketball or actually that was the first I heard of pickleball. We made it so we put lines out for pickleball.
Really? I didn't know pickleball.
Wow. Pickleball came out of Seattle, and
there we go.
Yeah.
There's another Seattle thing.
See, you learn something every time you listen to this podcast, folks. Pickleball started in Seattle in the 90s. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I thought it was a recent thing.
Yeah,
me too.
Jeez.
And Pearl Jam wanted to have a court available to them. It's like I don't know who was playing it, but I never saw anyone play it. But my kids have all had experiences that they didn't really understand at the time, but I was able to tell them later. So they have these stories of hanging out with Eddie or Chris Cornell, and they just as kids, and they enjoyed having the kids around. It was a very humanizing experience. When bands would start, I'd always make breakfast the first day. They didn't start till noon or whatever. But I'd make pancakes and whatever the dietary restrictions were. And just we really wanted to make it a homey place for people to be, and make it seem like it was quirky. So the guy who runs that studio is going to make us breakfast. That's.
I mean, that nothing says like, not business, but homey,
right.
Like you said, like this is a family gathering. This is
break
where
bread
we hang out. Let's break bread. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
we had great
beautiful.
conversations, great story. I mean, for a long time, I didn't let there be a TV in that studio. And
a smart idea.
Chris Cornell really liked that I didn't have a TV in there. He was in the studio once for his birthday, and I bought him a book of poetry. And he's like, "This is perfect. This is like I'm really focused because guys that watch TV, it just sucks up all their time and energy and focus." So, but eventually it broke down, and there's a TV there.
Of course, yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's only so much you could do.
Right.
Would you say Andy Wood was the first to be taken by heroin in the season?
Yeah. I mean, that was the first, that was the biggest hit. I mean, everyone kind of wore that wound. I mean, that was because it was a tragedy in plain sight. Everyone that was around had some ownership of that. Like, why didn't we say something? He was clearly out of control, but we were loving the show. And I got to town right after that, so I never met him, but
I bet you could feel.
But the feel was there. I mean, that was like it's kind of like Twin Peaks, like there was darkness in the woods, and you just couldn't help but feel it. And I came to start saying, like, listen, heroin's a death sentence. It might not take you today, but you're never getting out of this alive. And I had friends that got clean, and then, like, one of my drummers got clean. He was clean for 15 years, man. And then one bad day, because you don't know how to dose it, you don't know how your body's going to react, and
shit. I mean, that's what happened to Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
he was clean for 10 years more. I don't remember. That is a long time, and then just one bad night.
That is when you're most vulnerable. Is after you've been clean, and because you build up a tolerance for it. As it turns out. I mean, it's good thing to know, but it's just psychologically it's so addictive, and aside from the but I used to have when I first got there, 1990, 1991, that neighborhood where the studio, it was Studio X was. I mean, there were heroin transactions happening at my office was on 4th Avenue. I could see what's going on. I'd see the two-handed handshake all the time. There was a little park around the corner between us and the best little Mexican restaurant in town, because they used real lard. But it was like you didn't want to go past that place most of the time, because that's where you could just any day, any time, you could see 10 people there strung out, laying around. I mean, it was really a mess. So it was you had to be strong to not get caught,
drawn in. Yeah.
Well, and it going on tour, I mean, the reason that so many musicians end up addicted is when you go on tour, I mean, it's somebody's big night out everywhere you go, and they want to party with the band, and they're going to do things
every night,
any
every
other time.
show.
And that's what you're facing every night. Every night. Hey, someone brought some free fill in the blank, and they're all the darkest pleasures are on the menu every freaking day, and
yikes!
Anybody could fall for that.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, even people that never really had an addiction will come off tour and go, "Man, I gotta dry out. This was just too much." So when we first opened Litho, we were a block away from the original Red Hook Brewery. So I would go down there and wheel kegs back, and we used to put a keg on the back porch, and people would be drinking beer. And we had all kinds of stuff. We had all the things you'd need to consume any of the controlled substances you might want to that were natural and part of the music environment. But as time went on, people started getting sober, and it's like, oh, okay, are you? Should we have beer for you, or is just a fine selection of teas?
Right.
What's the vibe going to be on this one? And I mean, certainly Pearl Jam made that transition.
Well, didn't Chris Cornell also get clean for a little while?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people. Like, I'd ask every session, like how are we going to do this? How we want to talk about this, just so we can really clear. Because I mean, because like I said, I mean, there's plenty of people I saw going down on any kind of addiction whatsoever. So it was an ever presence. So
that vibe check was just as important as, how many tracks do we need? What instruments do we need? And all of the other things to make a record.
Absolutely. Well, so I learned this in Chicago, a place called Studio Media up in Evanston. The guy who owned that said, listen, the producer has to create the vibe. The engineer captures the vibe, and the assistant engineer protects the vibe. Mm-hmm. But the vibe has to be created and protected. That's everyone's got a job around the vibe. The vibe is the thing, because that's what makes a great record.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's the capturing. It's that documentation of that moment.
Time
of the vibe. Absolutely.
It is amazing how many, if the bands if they're around long enough, they go from excess to, we drink tea and water, and we don't do this anymore. And the longer they're around, the more of those bands are have got to that state, haven't they? You know, you almost see they all get there.
It's an occupational hazard. I mean, it's you know, more so than any other career in the arts, where it's just built in. Hey man, we're gonna go party and watch the concert. I'm so excited. I'm pumped. I bought extra fill in the blank. We're gonna get backstage. You know, so yeah. I mean, it's good. It's but it's fun to watch too, because it's like the way they think about their creative process, because it's a very real thing to want to get back to that original form of creativity that you had. But as you mature, I mean, the reality is, I mean, it just you start to know more. So,
well, and your situation has changed, hasn't it? That you know, even if you took Nirvana right at the beginning, they didn't have any money. They were doing everything on a shoestring. You can't be Nirvana 2 albums later, and go, we're the same as you're not. I mean,
nothing's changed. We're all the same. Yeah,
except everything's changed, and you're now in a different studio, or you've got 3 months to make a record, not 3 weeks, or
not to mention, you know, mouths to feed. You got family. You got all kinds of other responsibilities.
There's all these different inputs, and you know, I think it's some of those folks. I would, you know, and I saw this with. I won't name any names at the moment because they're still alive. But some of the original bands, you know, fought so hard to stay true to the thing, as opposed to, you know, that's not really a thing. You should be making music that speaks to you right now, not recreating these old moments.
Yeah, evolve.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, let yourself, you know, the best I ever heard explained is like, listen, the muse is where it all comes from, man. You are the conduit for the muse. So you got to take care of the muse. You got to, you know, and be there and ready for when the muse speaks to you, and then be that conduit as best you possibly can. And you do that by being self-aware and honest, right? I mean, that's, you know, part of what we did at Litho to keep the muse alive is we had one rate for records, like, you know, Sony records, things like that, you know, and then right after that, if someone called up and said, hey, I've got a jazz record I'm going to make, I've got, you know, 48 cents to make the record, I said, you're in, you know. If someone you knew, because I mean, Litho was not published, you couldn't find it on the map. I've seen now on the internet, there's some pictures of it, so it's locatable, but that. When we opened up, all of the, you know, here's another one of those inputs that might change your life. All of the bands had stalkers, and the stalkers were dangerous. And they came in one of two flavors. Hey, I'm in love with you. Clearly, all the music you make is for me, and so I'm going to come to be with you. And if I can't be with you, I'm going to kill you.
Wow.
Or my girlfriend thinks that all the music you make is for her, and she only wants to be with you, so I'm coming to kill you.
Incredible.
We had a security detail at Litho, and we didn't want anyone to kind of feel it, so but we would get the reports from the management. These are the names and pictures of the people that we're watching for. And if you see any of these people, there's a panic button, and someone will be there within 38 seconds.
It's mental, isn't it? You just don't think of any of that.
No, I would never have thought about that.
Chris Cornell would come to the studio super early because he's a really shy guy, really sweet guy, but really shy. And he would ride his motorcycle in early in the morning just to hang out and just not have encountered anybody on the way to the studio. Yeah. And sit and read, you know, before the session, and drink tea because he's taking care of his voice. I mean, because he was wanting to be a professional, right?
Yeah.
My favorite conversation ever was having he and Eddie at Litho at the table drinking tea, talking about taking care of their voice and the way their favorite singers, and they weren't rock singers. They were like Indian singers, like guys like they studied like, oh, this guy's got this kind of technique. I really want to, and they're able to reach these notes. And what does he put in his tea? You know, like really, you know, swapping, because they wanted to be great at what they were doing. You know, that's they're still, you know, craftsmen.
I think they achieved it. I think
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
I think they did
Yeah,
all right.
I think they made
They
it.
got there,
think
but
they
they would
figured
never
it
be
out.
done. I mean, you know, that what thing that breaks my heart is, you know, what would Chris be making now? I mean, he was,
Yeah,
That's
it'd still be going.
that's
Yeah.
the thing I wonder about. Like, what would any of those people be doing if they had made it through what they were going through? You know, like,
you know,
that's
And you could see the progression of their vocal abilities throughout the records.
yeah,
And that's one of the greatest things about like the 90s
100%.
music is like we had such amazing vocalists that came out of the 90s, lots of different amazing vocalists, Chris Cornell, you know, Kurt Cobain, but even, you know, Eddie Vedder, and you can hear the progression from album to album that they are working on their craft. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm the
100%.
best and I'm gonna
Right.
wing it, you know, like they have that look about the album that you could tell just from the listening of the vocals.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, they're so intentional with all of that. One of my favorite more recent stories is that so the Studio X is gone. They tore it down. It was a one-story building in downtown Seattle, which is against the rules of nature, evidently. But so I got invited to come back and kind of say goodbye to it because it was really Studio X was the top of my engineering accomplishments, and I wasn't sure who was going to be there. But when I met my second wife, you know, she saw Eddie's number in my phone and asked, "Is this Eddie Vedder's number?" I said, yeah. You know Eddie Vedder? Yeah. Can I meet him? I said, no way. No way you're meeting Eddie Vedder. No, zero chance. Right. And the guys I talk to always get it. Like I'm not it. And you know, I just knew the kind of women Eddie liked. Nothing good can come from that. So, so this is years later now in 2018 maybe, and so we're out in Seattle. I took my wife. Is Eddie going to be there? I said, maybe. You know, I don't know who's going to be there.
and she still hasn't met him at this point.
So not met him at this point. So sure enough, and I've seen him at various times during you know, over the years, but sure enough, he's at the party, and she's like, she finally gets to meet Eddie Vedder. She's got pictures with Eddie Vedder. That's great. But
awesome.
he and I got to hang out, and he and I haven't really spent time since forever. And he wanted to come to the party because for him, the really most moving experience he had there at Studio X was when he made the ukulele record. And someone put on the mains, you know, they're playing back a bunch of songs. They put a playlist together of songs that had been recorded in the room. And one of the songs from that record comes on, and he says, I want to listen to this. And I was sitting with him at that point, and I'm helping him keep away all the people that just want to talk to Eddie Vedder, because he's trying to have an experience right there. And there's one part that goes by, and I tap his shoulder. That's Neil Young right there. He said, "How did you know?" Like, you know, and I even know what song he borrowed it from, right? Because, you know, he and I've talked about songs before. Like this is, you know, Harvest Moon. You know, there's amongst my favorite vocal performances in the universe was Harvest Moon. I mean, it's so, you know, I don't know. It's hard to he like channeled it from another universe, and so I wasn't surprised when I heard, you know, a phrase go by, and it's like, Eddie, that's a good addition, man.
Yeah. You've done well there, sir. You've done well.
Good choice. Yeah.
Good man.
That's so cool.
But he was like impressed that I'd heard it. It's like, how did what do you do? This, I'm paying attention.
Yeah,
But
I know what I'm doing.
Well, so Jim, I it pains me to say that we are just about out of time.
Yeah.
It really does. Like I messaged the guys, I'm like, I don't know how to stop this, and I don't want to.
I could do this.
Well,
for
we
10 hours.
need a
This
part
is amazing.
2 and a part 3 and a part 4. and a part
If you
5.
are amenable to coming back in
Absolutely.
the future to continue this
Incredible.
conversation, there's so much more to hear about that time. But to hear these stories about the sort of behind the scenes of what happened in what is collectively sort of our favorite musical part of our lives, right? Like,
yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Like, I would not be who I was if it wasn't for Nirvana, if it wasn't for those records that came out of Seattle. Like that was was some of my first musical experiences on
absolutely.
tape.
I mean, it's really. I mean, this is the infrastructure of our culture. This is, you know, this is the shoulders of giants we stand on, and
Yeah.
how we interpret the world comes from the art that we surround ourselves with. And it's that we still talk about when the Beatles became the Beatles, and the Beatles versus Stone thing seems ridiculous to kids today, but like that was an important conversation that we had to have, right?
Right.
It made us who we are. And then you could go through every one of those eras and find a handful of artists is like really, hey, they were really in the moment and they really helped create the moment and got us through to the next place. And, you think we're making progress, it's because of them.
Wow. Well, Jim, I mean, thank you.
My pleasure, man. I'm so glad.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming onto our show, our humble little show, and talking about your time in Seattle in the 90s. And we will have you back very soon. I promise everybody. This is not the last time we're going to talk to Jim. There's so much more to talk about, but we have to call
better
it.
For worse like that about 5 years of these things. So
well, this is awesome. So Jim, thank you for being on today's episode of the Sound Discussion Podcast.
Thanks, Grab. Really appreciate being here, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks again for listening to this month's episode of Sound Discussion with Jim Haviland. How awesome is his story? The guys and I are just beside ourselves. Growing up, listening to the kind of music that he was a part of in the Seattle scene in the 90s is just an incredible experience. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys and your support. One thing that you can absolutely do to help us out is to go to your podcast platform of choice, whether it's YouTube or Pocket Casts or Spotify or Apple, and leave a 5-star rating and a review. Let people know what you thought of the episode. If it was garbage, cool. Let us know. If you thought it was awesome, let us know. We'd love to find out what you like about that episode, and others will find it interesting too, and that will help other people discover our show, and the circle of life continues. So please do that if you have a few minutes. Another thing you can do is sign up for our newsletter. If you want this episode at the very least a few days early, in most cases a week early, sign up for our newsletter. It's that private group of people that will email a link to the episode to you ahead of time before the rest of the world gets to hear it. And you'll be on the inside club for that. So thank you very much. And one more thing before we take off. Jim, what was it that you said you couldn't miss next time?
Mookie Blaylock. I think I'll catch the next time.